Hello again, everybody. I'm Henry T. Been a while since we've been here. Now we're fighting that COVID thing again. So let's all be careful. And the governor says, wear the mask. Man, you got to be cool with the governor. She's got our best interests in mind. I'm going to wear mine everywhere I go. Then I was at the supermarket yesterday, church, everywhere, and everybody is wearing the mask again. So I want to do my part. Amen. Lobo football season coming up in a couple of weeks. You've got to inquire about those breaks and tickets over there. Season ticket sales going like crazy. I, for one, want to welcome Danny Gonzales, our homegrown hero, our homegrown UNM football coach, as he debuts his University of New Mexico coaching career at University Stadium. I hope it's 45,000, 50,000 there on that night to welcome the new football team, and especially to give that warm welcome to Danny Gonzales. I'm going to be there. I'm looking forward to. I have my credentials to go in the press box, but I want to be out there with you in the stands and having a great time. Lobo football is back, and I hope it never leaves us ever again at that high level that we're so used to with Rocky Long. Remember when he was here, things just kind of fell to the wayside. Well, Rocky's on board with Coach Gonzales as the defensive coordinator. I'm going to be there. I want you to be there. Let's all plan to be there. Mask or no mask, whatever is required, let's go down there, have a great time. Today, I'm excited about today. I told you long ago, we're not always going to cover sports. We're going to cover New Mexico's most interesting people, the achievers, the movers, and the shakers. And today we step into Hollywood, the potential of Hollywood. You're going to meet a young man right now, Jude Orozco, graduate of Valley High School, former athlete there, comes from a great family, an educated family, a fired up family. And this young man is fired up. You'll know by the tone of his voice that he loves what he does. Man, he's going to make Hollywood something special with that enthusiasm that this young carries. He entered a contest not too long ago, and he put a film together, and he distributed it all over the world in competition. And wow, we heard recently that he won the competition from Albuquerque, New Mexico, Hollywood bound. He's humble, but he's excited. Here's Jude Orozco. Jude, Henry T here. How are you, buddy?
I'm very well. How are you?
Man, I'm fired up just like you. He's a little shy, but that fire is going to come any second. I'm going to ask you again. How are you, Jude?
Oh, man, I'm great. I'm great.
There it is.
Excited to speak
There
with
it
you.
is.
Yes, very excited to speak with you, Mr. DeFoya. We've been in contact over the last 2 weeks now.
Amen. And you're so busy getting pats on the back, it's hard to contact you, buddy.
Oh, well, thank you
What's
very much.
happened since you won this competition? We'll find out what the competition was, but how has it changed your life?
Well, I have been working on all sorts of filmmaking and just in the department of making films, in the industry of making films for many years. And this most recent film that you're speaking of has been very, very exciting. It was my first opportunity to direct a feature film, and so with that, I have been reaching out and talking to industry heads such as yourself, such as everyone else that I've spoke with, and I've also put it into the festival circuit, and that has been a really beneficial thing. Really, it's been really great because we've seen some accolades. We've seen a few awards so far, and truth truth of the matter is these are early awards. There's an extensive list of film festivals that I've put this film in, which that's typically the process when you finish a film and you have funding to do so. You take the route of submitting to film festivals in order to get uh, first off just recognition, and then what you're looking for after that is notoriety. You're looking for something that can show that your film is worth its weight in celluloid, because celluloid's actually more expensive than gold, but worth its weight in celluloid. It's shot digitally. We didn't shoot on film, but I do love the approach of taking something on from a film aspect, cutting and editing film, and understanding how hard that was and how easy it is for us today. It's it's a very honorable thing to be recognized for, and I appreciate that very much.
What's the name of the competition? Because I'm sure we have a lot of viewers who want to go put it on their computer, find out more about you and the competition. And since so much Hollywood has come to Albuquerque or New Mexico,
Yeah.
the big studios out there on the southern part of our city, wow, we're getting touched and bombarded by Hollywood for all of New Mexico's attributes out there at those big studios. You're aware of them. You know how Hollywood has come to us, and you're jumping right in front of them, getting recognition. What competition was this, and how significant of a company or competition is it or was it?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm jumping in front of anybody, especially because some of the largest industry is in Albuquerque. I'm not sure if you know, but they call Albuquerque Tamalewood. Have you heard that?
Well, I don't, yeah, I have, but
It's
I
like,
don't mean that literally like you're jumping in front of them. That's my term saying you're not sitting around waiting for them to knock on your door. You're knocking on theirs, which is commendable to you.
oh, well, thank you, sir. Thank you. The awards came through the festival circuit, so the film festival circuit. So what you do when you create a film is you then want to shop it around, right? And I'm also a producer on this film. I wore every hat on this film. I directed, I wrote it, I shot it, and edited it, and then I'm also producer. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes you got to do that, and especially early on. I've been in the industry for over a decade, but I'm still new in a lot of aspects, and even with the credibility that comes with coming from Albuquerque to Mollywood, there's still that playing field and that level of competition that exists across the board and always has in the entertainment industry. So, what you do when you release a film in order to get noticed is you take it to the festival, the film festival circuit. And when you do that, you kind of spread your chips across the board, like if you're playing roulette and you're or even if you're playing craps for that matter, you're trying to you're trying to put your best bets on anywhere that has the most interest and the most return for your bet, because ultimately you're betting. When you make a film, you're you're bringing together a band of brothers, right? You're building a team, and you don't know at the beginning of that endeavor if it's going to succeed or not. And you can take all of the steps and all of the precautions and measures to make sure that it will succeed, but you still don't know. It's like going into a battle, or it's like robbing a bank. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. It's the ultimate heist. You're trying to steal people's attention, and you're trying to garner their attention and hold it. And you're trying to do that prematurely before they even see the finished product. You're trying to create something. So you have to do that with a team most times. But in the documentary world, not so much. So that's where it comes in that I had to wear multiple hats. We definitely had some hurdles just because of the content of the film. The content of the film was, call it provocative, I guess. It was, it had a lot of media attention attached to it. The client did, prior to me even picking this up as a film. So when I picked it up, I knew it was hot, and I knew it had potential to roll. That being said, I wanted to tell a very honest story, and I wanted to tell a very true story, a story that's everything is on the surface, a very topical story.
Let me stop you right there. What was the criteria? What were the rules before you went into the competition?
Well, the competition isn't necessarily so much a competition as it is a film festival. And so the accolades and the awards that we've received on this film have come through that avenue, through the film festival avenue. So the application process requires that you apply for the specific type of film that you're making, which is in this case a documentary, and also the I guess on layman's terms, the length of the film determines what type of film it is. That, what I mean by that is, if it's 15 minutes or shorter, we're looking at a short film. If it's even upwards to 45 minutes, we could still fall into that short film realm. But anything past an hour, past 60 minutes, and my film is 2 hours and 21 minutes, that's a feature film. And so that puts you in a different, I don't want to say echelon, but something like a different category.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Like something that really sets you apart from the short film section of judgment.
This is a major production. I mean, that's a long film when you're carrying all the hats and wearing all the hats. Wow. Yeah. First of all, share with us what the subject matter was that is your film.
Yeah. It's a film about food subsidies. And when you're a filmmaker, I'm sure you've heard the term sex sells, right? You got to make it sexy. You got to make it sexy to appeal to the people, the viewers. It's really hard to make subsidized food sexy. But the fact of the matter is, the contract itself, this is a government contract that was provided during the onset of the pandemic and the quarantine. This is, early April of last year, 2020. And we had just gotten bombarded over the course of 2 months, over 60 days, we got bombarded with information that shut our country down. And it just put everything on hold. It put everything on hold. And it was a crazy time for everyone. I mean, I don't know. What about you? Like, what did you experience during that time?
Well, it stopped everything I was doing
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form, or it had parameters all of a sudden and limitations. Were you faced with the same parameters?
I was, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, being in the entertainment industry, we shut down. And I had always been told I'm in a recession-proof industry. I was always told the entertainment industry is a recession-proof industry because in times when people are at their hardest or their most difficult times, they want an escape. So they go to the live. I started in rock and roll. So they go to rock and roll. They go to the live shows. They go to the matinees. They go to the theater in order to escape from the reality of the norm, right? Well, it turns out that recession and complete shutdown are two different things. So we may be a recession-proof industry, but we became I want to say, one of the hardest, if not the hardest hit industry in the last year and a half, because people stopped going to public gatherings. They stopped going to places where our industry thrives. And it was literally boom, just boom, like done, a brick wall. And everybody in my industry was without work. And not only that, but a lot of us at the time, prior to the change in legislation and whatever, we were sole proprietors. We were our own businesses. And so we worked from gig to gig. We were gig workers. And the gig economy completely shut down. So it became like, I don't know, just looking at my feed of like my friends and my fellow coworkers and people in my industry, it was disparaging. It was hard. It was hard hitting because I luckily had been in a place where I was like, okay to be settled for a little bit, but I was still seeing that, that the ever approaching doom of like, wait, I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be okay. But I'm looking at my fellow, my peers, and I'm seeing them having such a hard time right off the bat. So with that, it was an interesting time for creatives in general, and you just had to like do something. So I made a short little film about the disparity, but then I wanted to like make it, I wanted to flip it and make it about the courageousness of people. The reason why the streets are empty is because we're trying to protect each other, right? And I called it Duty. And I basically just walked around downtown Austin, Texas, where I live, and I filmed the empty streets. And Austin's a buzzing city. It's a busy metropolis, and it's wild sometimes. We have a place called Dirty Sixth, and it's essentially Central Avenue back home in Albuquerque, but it's like Central tenfold, 20-fold, right? On Fridays and Saturdays, they shut it down because it gets so populated. It's like Bourbon Street or anything like that, Times Square, empty, no one,
So get us through that. You obviously, it didn't stop you entirely. You battled right through the obstacles and kept pursuing your goal. Now, how did you eventually get there?
Well, I kept myself busy. You know, I shot this short film, and this film was literally just me shooting the empty streets. I put that out there, and people liked it. At the time, it resonated with a certain demographic, you know, basically every demographic of people who realized like this is a very interesting time. Things are different, right? And we're not able to go out and experience things.
Why didn't you quit? Why didn't you bow down and say, okay, I'll wait? Why did you keep going?
Hmm. Uh, Out of not going insane. I had the option to do other things, and other things were there, but I needed to make something. I needed to create, and I needed to continue to do what I had been doing prior to this moment when things came to a head, right? So I just shot for the sake of shooting, and it definitely worked. I don't know what I was trying to achieve, but ultimately it got noticed by a very good friend of mine. Um, we call him JD Garza out of San Antonio. And he had seen my little short film thing that I did, and it got some notoriety because it resonated with people. Like people felt what it meant and what it did. And he called me. He actually called a mutual friend of ours, my friend Matt Guthrie, wonderful filmmaker and collaborator with me for many years. And they had a project. They had something that didn't really, I don't know, it didn't like, they didn't know all of the details. It didn't all add up, but there was a client, there is a necessity for footage, and that's what added up for us, right? So he called me, and I was in Alamogordo. We were just driving through, and there's a lot of vineyards out there and some cool stuff. And it was Saturday evening. It was like, I don't know, I want to say, given the time frame, probably like 6, right? So we're beginning to wrap up our evening. I'm out there with family, and my friend calls me. He's like, "How soon can you be in San Antonio Monday morning?"
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, "Why? Like, what for?" And he says, "We got a client. It's this guy. He's getting a lot of bad press. He just received a large government contract, and this is this is to feed people. This is to feed families. And this is, like late March, I get this call to roll into April, and the the impact of the quarantine had already taken hold. I had a friend commit suicide in the first month and a half of quarantine because he ran a photo studio out of his home, and when quarantine happened, he had no more income, and apparently he was living bill to bill, and it took his drive, so yeah, things were real. And it was interesting to get this call because I wasn't in a place where I was worried yet, but I was also thinking like, how long is this going to last? And turns out it's lasted till now.
So this gentleman who comes to your buddy with financial help, basically, is that what we're talking about?
By
Got
proxy.
a government contract? Does that mean that was financing?
No, not for the movie by any means. That was financing for the contract, the topic of the movie, the subject matter. So okay, so yeah, so the these guys, the client for me, they got a government contract, the seventh largest government contract in the nation for subsidized food during the pandemic. So what the former head of Department of Agriculture, Mr. Sonny Perdue, did. And so what happens is department heads shift when cabinets shift. So when it went from Republican Trump to Democratic Biden, Biden chose all new heads for all the departments, and that's not up for vote or anything. Like, that's per the cabinet. They get to pick those people. So Mr. Sonny Perdue left office when Biden took office. And I actually don't even know who the current head of Department of Agriculture is. I did read something about the person not having any previous farming background or whatever. Me, myself, I usually don't, these days, in the last couple of years, I usually don't take political preference or ideologies into what influences my judgment. I just kind of base things on like how people are and how, what the evidence is. That being said, I've definitely worn my heart on my sleeve as a liberal, and as being a creative, you kind of fall into that realm automatically. But I will say, Mr. Sonny Perdue was an incredible head of the Department of Agriculture. What he did was, so he's a former farmer. He's a former person of agriculture. He understands the farmer's needs. And basically what that means is he understands what is necessary to keep people fed. And when the quarantine hit, it hit so abruptly, and it hit in such a way that it shut down the four major industries of agriculture, which is live entertainment, hotels, schools, and essentially grocery. But grocery kind of doesn't even matter because these pay for over 60% of what agriculture provides for our community. And in order to keep the groceries full of groceries, these need to succeed because these three are the reason for industry. The rest is just because we can afford to do so. We're not socialists. We're not socialists over here. We can afford to do this, so we do it based on this. This is all because of market and industry. And so when those industries shut down, they had to act quick because otherwise, so at the beginning of the pandemic, farmers were dumping milk so profusely that it would have offended anybody. I don't care if you're vegan. I don't care if you anything really. Like at the rate that farmers were dumping milk and they were tilling agriculture product and they were destroying product because there was no place to send it, it would have alarmed the world.
So there were no buyers for milk at that time.
Exactly. Exactly. There was no avenue to send the milk. Therefore, they had to eat the cost. It had all been worked out in a yearly annual plan, and then all of a sudden that plan didn't work anymore. So there was no place to send it. So they had to till it, they had to dump it.
Wow.
So with that, Mr. Sonny Perdue acted very quickly, and not just him, but him and his department acted very quickly, and they realized, okay, well, there's multiple needs right now. There's multiple necessities that needs to be filled. One of them is fixing the agricultural market. Another one is people are furloughed. They're out of work right now. What are they going to do? Where are they going to get their money? How are they going to get their food? Okay, well, let's figure this out, right? Let's put it together and let's figure this out. So they came up with a plan that repurposed the food that was otherwise going to go to the hotels, the schools, and the live events, and send it into a box program. And this was called the CFAP. CFAP, and one of the categories of CFAP was the Farmers to Families Food Box Program. And so what they were able to do was they were able to reallocate this food from the farmers, send it to 501c3s, food banks, and different religious organizations, any organization really, schools. A lot of schools took the food, and they were able to package it into boxes. And in this case, in the client's case, 25-pound boxes. And this happened in a matter of, I want to say like 5 to 6 weeks. The decisions were made and it was pushed through almost across the board. There was like both sides of the aisle were for it, and it pushed it and it made it. The legislation passed, and then it was voted into law or whatever. Not law, but like it was created. It was created as a government program. And when that happened, what they allowed, much like the way military contracts work, is they allowed for private companies to bid on the contract, portions of the contract. And that's where my client comes in. The subject of the film, the person that picked me up initially was a wedding planner. And he teamed up with a caterer, and Greg Palomino is the name of the wedding planner. And he teamed up with a friend named Iverson Brownell. And Iverson is a very successful chef and a very successful private caterer, as well as commercial caterer, and has experience in providing food for large numbers of people. So when these two teamed up, they leaned heavily on Iverson's connections and industry knowledge in order to get the ball rolling. But what they ultimately did was they were able to successfully achieve, what they received was up to $39 million. Yeah, $39 million in order to pay for these subsidized food boxes for families. That is helping multiple levels of economy. And the trials and tribulations, let's call them, that this company faced in doing that was ultimately the reason why I was able to make subsidized food sexy.
Wow. Now, how did your role begin after receiving all this information? Now you've got your conceptual skill, you see the big picture. Now you're a creator. What sparked you to think film, information, public, they need it, I can do it? Where was the catalyst? Give us that story.
Well, I can honestly say when I first showed up day one, I didn't have any idea of what I was shooting, much less what the ultimate big picture was, right? So I showed up day one and I was told, 8-hour days. This is industry standard. So like anything past 8, overtime. So keep them to an 8 and just roll your camera when you think things are happening. And that's documentary filmmaking, right? That's like what you have to do. You have to be on your toes. You have to be able to understand where the story is and where it's not. But you also have to be able to get the footage of where it's not in order to tell a full story.
So initially, what was the story?
Yeah, initially the story was a guy got a contract and the local newspaper was giving him grief because he wasn't in the agricultural industry. He was in the, call it the entertainment industry, if you will. And they're like, how did this guy get this contract? But, and that's what my story tells, is ultimately, you know, the reporters, the people who are trying to make a story don't have all of the context to the story. So they have to fill in the blanks where they see fit. And that's what happened from an early state in this process, even before I was brought on board.
Well, essentially, this guy got this money to do something great, to save lives, to feed people, and you see this, and now you start from step one, following the story. Quickly take us through to where the story started really developing and meant something.
So the government contract was broken into phases. So there was phase one, and phase one was through the month of June of 2020. It was 45 days. So it went into the last few days of May and ended on June, the last day of June. And it was a 45-day contract that they were granted. And in that 45 days, they were tasked with doing up to $39 million. That equates to however many boxes, 750,000 boxes of food provided to families. All the logistics that went into that were what I was filming on a day-to-day basis. But when it really got serious, when it really got like, okay, this is turning into something, was around June 15th, I want to say, maybe June 12th. The USDA had reached out directly to the client and told them that they're not moving fast enough. And if they don't do something, they're losing their contract. This was a Friday, and they were like, if you don't do something over the weekend, you're losing your contract Monday. And so that was interesting. And that's in the film. But this is all news to me. I'm still learning what this contract is even about, much less understanding the levels of scrutiny that they're under. So I'm just there, a fly on the wall. That's what I kept calling myself. I just kept saying to them every time that they were like, why is Jude here with a camera? What is this camera for? Because they're worried about so many things. They're worried about getting this thing moving, and that's a $39 million contract. And I'm worried about documenting that. And I'm learning as I go, and ultimately I'm so well informed that I'm part of the team.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, your subject right now, if Denzel Washington would see the script, he'd be bored to tears.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get in there with you to find out, gee, you said it earlier, it's not sexy. The story is blah, but it has an ingredient of life or death. We need this food. We're in a pandemic, and this guy's got till Monday. There's some drama now. You got till Monday to do something, or the contract ends. You're documenting every word. Now, make it sexier for us.
Okay. Well, how's this for sexy? The local newspaper, in some way, some facet, I can only guess as to how they have these connections, but they have them. They have direct affiliation with the local food banks, and the local food bank to where this took place, the San Antonio Food Bank, had a very interesting relationship with the client, and it became such that the client, they ultimately had to sever ties with the local food bank, because what had been going on was through the industry itself, which had seen a hit because of the pandemic, but also saw a hit because they bid for this exact same contract. And the way that the government contracts work is you have a winner and you have a loser. Somebody gets it, somebody doesn't. So when somebody gets the contract, they're taking away from the people who don't. Business, ultimately, it's business. But what it amounts to is that these people who didn't get the contracts, who had been seeing this government money, let's call it government cheese, right? This government cheese rushing in over the course of decades and years, and however long they've had these relationships, all of a sudden they didn't see that money coming in. They acted accordingly, and lobbyists were involved, and the media obviously was involved with the local media, and this got all the way to Politico. This was on the New York Times website, and things got heavy. And what happened was they started lobbying against this company, saying that they weren't worthy of this contract. They didn't deserve this contract. Back home, let's take it back to where things are actually happening, where I am, boots on the ground with a camera. None of that mattered, because what these people had to still figure out was how to get this food to people, how to reallocate this money to then reallocate this agricultural product in order to turn it into food for families. So all that ultimately did, when people started closing doors, and that's what happened, was doors kept closing everywhere, every avenue, is they just made it harder. They made the hurdles more extravagant and bigger and bigger and bigger for this little company that was just trying to step up and do something when people were furloughed and stuck at home. They made it harder. And
Jude, do we have enough preface to run the trailer right now?
Yeah, I think so. Honestly, I think the trailer speaks for itself.
Preface and introduce the trailer. I have not seen it yet. You know it well. So you introduce it right now, and Jimmy will roll it.
Okay. Is this the trailer or the
You want the preview or the trailer?
Let's do the trailer.
Okay.
Trailer I released back in October. I didn't finish editing the film until probably about March 2021. So a few months ago, the film finally finished. But I had all of the footage at the time of the trailer. And what I really wanted to do, I hate trailers that tell you everything when you see them, right? So what I really wanted to do was make a trailer that tells you the story, tells you the hard facts that you need to know as the viewer, and then makes you understand that there's so much more to this story. So this is our trailer, and yeah. Here we go.
All right, Jimmy, roll it.
We won the award, and we were given this opportunity to feed people. It was a very big responsibility.
This is the Farmers to Family Food Box Program. This is a $3 billion program.
A few days into us getting the contract, Word had already started trickling out that a small business in San Antonio had won.
A San Antonio event planning company was awarded $39 million from the federal government to distribute food to families in need.
I was super excited to get the contract. Once Greg told the large team that we had, they knew that the contract went in. Everybody showed up at work the next day. I told them we got the contract. Everybody was excited.
Right now, what we're doing is procuring all of our necessities for the warehouse. Just getting everything put in place, get everything in a timely manner, so everything's up to code.
It was going to be a challenge. We knew it was. We had no idea of the media.
There were doubts from the start about Create-A-Date's ability to purchase and distribute food boxes to food banks throughout the Southwest.
We had no idea of the politics involved. We didn't. That's not why we went after the bid. We went after it to help people.
The bureaucracy chose someone who was a wedding planner who'd never done this.
One Express News report uncovered what it called, quote, dubious claims made by the owner.
If somebody is found guilty after due process of being responsible for $30 million of fraud or some type of embezzlement or theft, without a doubt, without hesitation, I can tell you they would be serving a prison sentence.
You know, I've probably never seen a company that got this much negative press.
The USDA hasn't announced whether or not it's ending the $39 million contract.
Well, I think in any size, projects like this, there's going to be supporters, number one.
Thank you, Create-A-Date.
I can't say enough good things about the Create-A-Date team for giving us this opportunity, because it has provided a much-needed lifeline for our employees, our growers, and for us.
And then people that don't support near as much, number two.
Create-A-Date was not treated fairly by anyone who's reported on this situation so far.
But the focus is getting food to their families.
The USDA, Department of Agriculture, is excited about giving new opportunities to distribute these food boxes to those who really need it.
Most people like myself pick up food for people that can't make it here during the day. You can see by the line here, it goes pretty far back.
Everyone at the agency is cheering for Create-A-Date to make this work.
Our team shows up every day, and they do a great job. They know the mission is feeding the people. It's not about what's in the paper or what's on the radio. It's about feeding the families.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, I would have given you the award because that put life into something that really wasn't all that exciting, yet it was necessary.
Yes.
You read the necessary with a capital N. And give me a guesstimate. How many lives did this program aid or save?
Over six.
A long line of cars there.
Yeah. There was close to 600,000 boxes that were provided, and those boxes are 25 pounds. So they're meant to provide food for a family for close to a week. And that's a family of upwards of 3 to 4. So I want to say over 1 million. I don't know. I mean, over 1 million people were affected by this.
That is substantial. That is huge. You have the, as I'll say again, you saw the picture, you documented it, you made it into a documentary or a long film. I give you a high five and then some for seeing the story, for depicting and getting everything out of that story that had a human element to it. I mean, a lot of people got hit hard during this past year and a half or longer. No food, kids, I mean, no jobs. They got to eat. You found the story. All I can say is bravo. What happened soon after? You had everything filmed, you had narration, You have all the sound bites. Now you got to go into the editing room.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting because, you know, that month of June was when they had the contract, but then July 3rd through September, so August, September, almost into October, like 3.5 months, I was on the road traveling the country. They had a 7-state region. They had Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Texas. And I went to every single one of those states. And I also went to other states where they were provided, where they procured the food, like the facilities that they got the chicken from, that they got the produce from. So I was on the road for close to 4 months all over the country, and that took a toll on my personal life, on my...
How much budget did you have?
Basically my budget was based on my day rate. And the way that our industry works is we charge day rate for 8 hours. Anything past 4.5 hours is a full day. Doesn't matter if it's 4 hours and 35 minutes, 31 minutes, it's a full day. And then our half day rate is half of that. I was charging industry standard rates according to the unions. I'm very pro-union. I'm a IATSE card holder in New Mexico, and have worked with the local here in Texas a few times. And, you know, the film industry doesn't happen without unions. And I just want to say that unions are key to making sure that an industry like the film industry succeeds and prospers, because there's so many departments and there's so many people and there's so many hours that can get disregarded if it wasn't for business agents, and if it wasn't for contracts, and if it wasn't for unionization in general. I mean, both my parents work as civil servants. My dad's a firefighter, my mom's a teacher, and they're both part of unions. And unions are incredibly important for keeping things moving. And that goes for the entertainment industry as well, for the things that people don't want to think are important, but are important. You know, like I said early on in this, we're supposed to be a recession-proof industry.
What was it about this film that grabbed the judges? Because right now I understand how necessary it was, but you're a hero. You contributed in saving a lot of lives during a very difficult time in our country's history. Wow. If I had you right here, I'd give you a high five and a low five and a side-by-side five, because you're a hero, Jude. And I don't know where this film recognition, your awards, and you being crowned the champion is going to take you. But if you can put a film together like this, man, you can do a Denzel Washington film, snap of your fingers. How difficult was this? I mean, heart to heart, to bring the interest and keep the interest level right there. Because, man, you got the highest patience I've ever been around in this industry. And obviously your intelligence spills out everywhere. Your organization for keeping the story together, what parts fit when you're in the editing room. I feel your pain.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you're in it, you know, you're in the industry, you understand how much goes into, you basically give your life up to the life of the film, and you have to, you know. There was times when it interfered, many times where it interfered with my personal life, it interfered with my professional life. I didn't take a project the entire year. this film was my only project. Now, granted, they, production took care of me very well, and because they knew what was at stake, what we were doing. And I was just very fortunate to have allowed, I don't know, to have, I do feel that I put myself in a good position, and I earned the ability to fall into that role, but it was still, a lot of it does still fall on luck and chance. And
any subject matter you take from here is going to be candy and cake compared to what you just experienced. I mean, you deserve this award. I mean it. Before we go, I want to give a little recognition to mom and dad. How about the parenting that you got as you were growing up and going through the hallways of Valley High School in Albuquerque? How about mom and dad? What role do they play in your success story?
Huge, the biggest. Like I said, a lot of my influence comes from their hard work. And my mom's a teacher, and she nurtures children. She nurtures people to be better, and she brings out a creative aspect in these kids that I love. And my dad, he's a firefighter. He's
courageous.
He's in his current state, he's a firefighter, but he's lived many lives. And he's the reason I got into rock and roll, into the entertainment industry and as a profession. But that's not even speaking about the influences of being a little kid, and just hanging out with my mom and dad. And I was listening to a song. I was floating the river 2 days ago, and I threw on Sting, Fields of Gold. You know that track?
Yeah.
I can't listen to that track without thinking of my parents. And that track I don't even know really what the lyrics are about. He's like in a field of barley and, all this.
Where do you go from here? Take mom and dad with you in your success story, but what's next? Is Hollywood knocking on your door literally?
I'm in Austin, Texas, and Austin's a very cool city. I've been fortunate enough to live and work here since 2013, and I still travel home. I would like to work more at home than I do here, just because of the amount of industry that's in Albuquerque. But I've been working with a ad agency, and that's kind of been a dream of mine.
We have about 30 seconds left.
Okay.
Give me a final touch to this incredible story.
I don't know. I just thank you, Mr. Tafoya, for bringing me on your show. I know that my mom has plugged me, and that's how you and I got in contact. But it's just really great to know that the work that I've done on this film and other things have gotten me recognition. And I just hope to keep working in this industry and making a name for myself.
One of these days, you and I may tackle a project together. I'm making a movie right now myself. I'm not going to let the cat out of the barn yet, but I'm going to seek you out as counsel and have you over my shoulder saying, Henry, not there, go here. So thank you for being with us today, Jude. God bless you. Huge congratulations.
So
bravo.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate your time. And call me. Let's do that.
All right, man. Take care. Wow. Courageous, innovative, creative for sure. Man, I don't know how you make that kind of a subject matter as interesting as he did, but I'm going to find out. Bottom line, this contract saved lives, and he put it together. And I'm sure everybody involved in the project are giving Jude a pat on the back for a job well done. God bless you, Jude. Well, that's going to do it. We'll give you a quick glance of our sponsors, and we're out of here. Amastroy Drywall, Ben Lucero at Indigo Mortgage. There's Kevin out there at Canteen feeding all the kids in the Albuquerque area at the public schools. Richie Tabbitt at Rex. Oh man. And the Hydro Bar. God bless all of you for backing Henry T with this podcast. We'll see you soon. Take care. We'll see you next Monday. Maybe Wednesday. Who knows? Take care. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. That was awesome. That was very cool.
Well, believe me, man, I don't know how you kept your interest, especially early on, to tackle this, because now I'm one of those Arnold Schwarzenegger type. I want to see bells and whistles and everything going on, but you made something very difficult very interesting, Jude.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. And then bottom line, you gave recognition to all those people that put their heart on the line to feed Americans. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like I didn't, I just documented it. I didn't do that. They did.
You felt it.
You
knew what you were doing.
I felt it. That's for
and
sure.
The end result.
Yeah.
Wow.